What do you do when your landscape photography motivation is lost? In this video I will give you 7 tips to help you get the motivation back again. Hi, I'm Kim from Landscape to Art and I'm here to help you improve your landscape photography, focusing on developing your skills as a photographer and less on the gear you use. And if this is your first time here, make sure to click the subscribe button below. Lack of motivation and finding time for photography happens to all photographers from time to time. One reason you lose motivation for landscape photography is that you have reached a kind of a plateau. You have done the same things, the same type of photography so many times that it's not challenging for you anymore. Lack of time, however, is just an excuse to justify not going out and photograph. So how can you deal with motivation and lack of time? Time is simple. You just have to find the time. If photography is your priority and something you love, you will find time. You just have to stop doing other things that are taking up your time, like social media and TV. They are both time suckers. If you can't find time for photography, it just means that you don't appreciate it enough anymore. And if that's the case, you have no reason to complain. It's your choice. Time and motivation are related. If you're not motivated, it's even harder to find the time. To get back the motivation, you need to challenge yourself. You need to change, set new goals. Not only can a challenge boost your motivation, but it's also a way to develop and improve your photography skills. And here are 7 ideas how you can get back the motivation for landscape photography. The first challenge I will talk about is to get out of your comfort zone. And you do that by trying a new genre of photography or landscape photography is not only big vistas and epic locations. When I looked through my Lightroom catalog, I realized a lot of my images were long exposures, basically seascapes. So obviously at some point in my photography career, I discovered long exposure photography. When you photograph the same thing over and over again, there is a risk that you get bored and lose the motivation. If you know you're into a particular type of landscape photography, try something different. Challenge yourself and photograph something else. For example, try macro photography, macro landscapes. It is amazing what you can find if you take a closer look. So get creative with intentional camera movement, where you move the camera during exposure. That's also a great thing to try out. I'm constantly working on improving my composition skills. And a great way to do that is to photograph complex woodland and forest scenes. If you have not photographed in the forest yet, I challenge you to give it a try. This will set your composition skills up for a test and you will be extremely happy if you manage to get or nail a couple of great photos of forest scenes. The second type of challenge is to commit yourself to go out and take 1 photo every day, for example, for a week. Or 1 photo every week for a year. It's even harder. And the most extreme and probably hard to complete is to take 1 photo every day for a whole year. That's 365 photos. That's a huge challenge, so don't make it too hard for yourself if your motivation is lacking. It is important to stay committed to this challenge and make it to the end. That's the most important part of it. Landscape photography is also very dependent, but don't let the weather stop you. Over weeks or months you will experience many different weather conditions and you should try to capture them all. This will be a great learning experience that you will benefit from later when you have found back your lost motivation. The third challenge is to limit yourself to only shoot with 1 focal length. Preferably you should use a lens with a fixed focal length. But if your only lens is a zoom, you can, and you're afraid that you cannot stick to 1 focal length, there is a way that you can do that. So set your lens to the focal length that you want to use and then stick a tape around it and lock it down. Lock down the zoom. Many landscape photographers, including myself, tend to use wide-angle lenses a lot. And if you do that, force yourself to shoot with a different focal length, like for example a 50mm for the purpose of this challenge, or even a telephoto lens if you prefer. If you use Lightroom, you can find which focal length you use the most by searching in the catalog. This exercise will force you to move around rather than using the zoom to make composition. Try to take, let's say, 20 photos, 20 different compositions with the same focal length at the same place, at the same spot. The fourth challenge is to limit the number of shots you are taking. If you have been into photography as long as I have, you have probably used film camera. Back in the days, you could buy film or slide film with 12, 24 or 36 frames. And that's not a lot of frames compared to what you're used to with a digital camera. With only 36 frames, you had to be much more strict about what you aim your camera at before you press the shutter. But in digital photography, you're used to getting instant feedback on the LCD. So if you're not happy with a shot, you just make a correction and take another shot at no extra cost. So this challenge is to go out for a couple of hours and find locations and restrict yourself to shoot only 36 frames. To make this challenge even more demanding, turn off the LCD of the playback or the playback on the viewfinder, so that you're not getting any feedback on the results before you are back home. And if you're afraid you will cheat yourself, just tape a piece of paper over the LCD. So this exercise will force you to be more deliberate about the camera settings you're using. It also forces you to slow down and think more about the composition before you press the shutter. So how many decent photos can you create from a 36 roll of digital frames? The fifth challenge is to go out and shoot with your camera phone. Photographers like gear, that's no doubt, but in all honesty, sometimes the gear gets in our way. So charging batteries, emptying memory cards and packing the camera bag can be challenging in itself sometimes, especially if you're just going out for a short shoot. So everyone today has a small and convenient camera with them all the time in their pockets, their phones. Smartphones have great cameras now, so grab your phone and take a walk and see what you can do with the phone. With the phone, you more or less only have composition to think about. It can be relieving sometimes to just create without having to concern too much about the camera settings. I find myself picking up the phone more and more often, not only to take snapshots, but I really try to create good landscape photos with my phone. It's possible. Photographers often have a tendency to be too serious and too technical and only focusing on the image quality. Give the phone a try and you will be surprised how much fun it can be when you're playing with it. Most digital photos nowadays are in colors. So the sixth challenge is to photograph in black and white. We see color images all over the place and only occasionally someone posts black and white photos. I love black and white and I often convert my color photos into mono. There is something with black and white that makes these photos much more like a piece of art compared to color images. But taking good black and white photos require you to think differently and to make it, if you want to make it work. Not all subjects work well as black and white conversions. When you take the colors away, you remove some of the reality from the photos. And a great challenge is to boost your creativity is to set the camera to monochrome profile in the menu. This way you will see everything you photograph in black and white in the viewfinder or on the LCD. And you can also do this with most DSLR and mirrorless cameras, as well as advanced point and shoot cameras. The challenge now is to find suitable subjects that will work well for black and white. And here's another video I made about black and white photography. The seventh challenge you can try is not so much about photographing. Instead, you help another photographer to improve his or her photography skills. And as I mentioned earlier, when you lose motivation, it's for a reason. You have reached a point where you think you have nothing more to learn. But in photography, as elsewhere in life, you never stop learning. And you never should stop learning. As time goes by and you get more experience, it's easy to forget about the basics. We all once in a while benefit from repeating old knowledge. A great way to do this is to take a friend or a fellow photographer that is a few steps behind you in the learning process. Take them with you for a teaching lesson. Teach them what you can about photography. And also, Knowing that you have an agreement, an appointment with someone makes it harder not to fulfill your commitment. And accountability is a very powerful way to get things done. When you get too serious about photography, there is a risk that you run out of motivation. For most people, photography is supposed to be fun and enjoyable. And if you take yourself too seriously, this can be hard at times. The challenges I have talked about in this video are just meant for fun. But the point is not how good the photos you are taking during the challenge, but rather to prove to yourself that you can stay committed and complete the challenge completely. So now, if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you again for watching, and as usual, if you have any comments or questions, post them in the comment section below. And until next time, ha det bra, goodbye.